World War I, often termed as the Great War, was one of the most significant conflicts in the history of mankind. It spanned from 1914 to 1918, involving nations globally and resulting in drastic shifts in geopolitical landscapes. This engagement is notorious not only for its scale, but also for the manner in which it was fought, marking a turning point in modern warfare and international relations. The war's impact extended beyond the battlefields, influencing various aspects of society and setting the stage for the 20th century. World War I was characterized by its unprecedented mobilization of resources and the vast number of countries involved, from the vast empires of Europe to distant colonies in Asia and Africa. The war began as a European conflict but quickly expanded beyond the continent, affecting many nations worldwide. This global involvement turned it into a real world war. The conflict was primarily driven by a complex system of alliances and entangled commitments among the great powers, making it a fertile ground for a large-scale war. The war's extensive reach and the involvement of colonial powers also meant that it was fought on various fronts, making it a truly global conflict. From the trenches in France to the deserts of the Middle East and the seas around the British Isles, the war showcased the full spectrum of military engagements. Each front presented unique challenges and required different strategies, which contributed to the complexity and the duration of the war. Understanding World War I is crucial not only to comprehend the historical events that shaped the modern world, but also to appreciate the lessons learned from such a devastating conflict. As we delve deeper into the specifics of the war, it becomes evident how a series of events and decisions led to a war that reshaped the world in many unforeseen ways. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary on June 28, 1914 in Sarajevo is often cited as the immediate catalyst for World War I. The Archduke was heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his assassination by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, set off a chain reaction among the major European powers. This event is a classic example of how localized tensions and nationalist fervor can escalate into a full-blown international crisis. Archduke Franz Ferdinand Austria-Hungary's response to the assassination was severe, with the backing of Germany. They presented Serbia with an ultimatum intentionally made unacceptable to justify a pre-planned attack. Serbia's partial compliance to the ultimatum was not enough, and on July 28, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. This act triggered the complex web of alliances formed over the previous decades, pulling one country after another into the conflict. The assassination highlighted the fragility of the peace that existed in Europe at the time, underpinned by a complex system of alliances, militarism, imperialism, and nationalism. The leaders of the time were caught in a precarious balancing act of power and diplomacy. The balance, however, was easily tipped by aggressive foreign policies and nationalistic aspirations, as demonstrated in the Balkans, where tensions had been simmering long before the assassination. This event's significance lies not just in its immediate impact, but in its demonstration of how deeply intertwined and explosive international relations had become by the early 20th century. It serves as a poignant reminder of how a single incident can ignite the powder keg of larger geopolitical tensions, leading to widespread devastation. The landscape of alliances before World War I was a veritable maze, with major powers entangled in a series of agreements that were both defensive and offensive. These alliances were primarily forged to counterbalance the perceived threats from one another and to maintain a balance of power within Europe. However, they ultimately contributed to the war's outbreak by creating an environment where a conflict involving two countries could quickly involve all. The two main alliance systems were the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The Triple Entente included France, Russia, and Great Britain, which had come together through a series of agreements and shared interests in countering German and Austro-Hungarian power in Europe. On the other hand, the Triple Alliance comprised Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, formed in response to French and Russian moves and aimed at securing their positions against rival powers. These alliances were not static, but evolved over time, influenced by changing political dynamics, diplomatic negotiations, and the shifting ambitions of the countries involved. For instance, Italy, initially part of the Triple Alliance, switched sides to the Entente powers in 1915 after being promised territorial gains at Austria-Hungary's expense. This fluidity added to the unpredictability and instability of the political landscape before the war. The alliances meant that once Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, a domino effect was triggered. Russia mobilized in support of Serbia, a Slavic ally, leading Germany to declare war on Russia to support Austria-Hungary. France, bound by treaty to Russia, found itself at war with Germany and by extension Austria-Hungary. Britain, though initially ambivalent, entered the war following Germany's violation of Belgian neutrality, which was guaranteed under international treaty. Section 4. Major powers. The Allies versus the Central Powers. The major blocs in World War I, the Allies and the Central Powers, consisted of powerful empires and nations, each driven by strategic interests and national ideologies. The Allies, primarily France, Britain, Russia, Italy and the United States, were united in opposing the Central Powers' ambitions. The Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, had diverse goals. Germany sought dominance in Europe, pursuing Weltpolitik for world power status. Austria-Hungary aimed to secure its empire against internal and external threats. The Ottoman Empire joined to regain lost territories and status. These alliances were complex, often tied to domestic issues like economic crises and political upheaval. This alignment set the stage for a global conflict involving battles across multiple continents and seas. The war's global involvement expanded its scope, making it a world-altering event. Section 5. The battlefronts of World War I. World War I was fought across multiple fronts, each presenting unique geographical and strategic challenges. The main fronts included the Western Front, Eastern Front, Italian Front, Balkan Front, and the Middle Eastern Front. These fronts were the scenes of some of the most intense and prolonged fighting of the war, featuring different combinations of the warring powers and involving a complex interplay of military tactics and technologies.
The Western Front, primarily located in France and Belgium, is perhaps the most famously brutal of all the fronts. It was characterized by trench warfare, a grueling form of combat that led to massive casualties and little territorial gain. The front stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland, forming a continuous line of trenches that epitomized the deadlock and attritional warfare that defined much of World War I.
In contrast, the Eastern Front was marked by more fluid movements and larger territorial exchanges. Stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, this front involved the forces of Germany and Austria-Hungary against Russia. The vastness of the territory and the logistical challenges it presented made warfare here markedly different from the compact, trench-bound fighting in the West.
The Italian front, primarily along Italy's border with Austria-Hungary, saw high-altitude mountain warfare that posed unique challenges to both sides. The rugged terrain and harsh weather conditions added to the hardships faced by the soldiers.
Meanwhile, the Balkan and Middle Eastern fronts involved a mix of conventional battles and guerrilla warfare, with the latter front also witnessing the crumbling of the Ottoman Empire. These varied fronts required the warring nations to adapt their strategies and tactics to local conditions, leading to innovations in warfare, including the use of new technologies. The complexity and diversity of the battlefronts also meant that the war impacted a wide range of environments and populations, contributing to its global scale and catastrophic human cost. Section 6. Key battles and turning points. World War I was marked by several key battles and campaigns that had significant impacts on the course of the war. These battles were pivotal military engagements that tested the resolve and resources of the nations involved. Among the most significant were the Battle of the Somme, the Battle of Verdun, the Battle of Cambrai, the Spring Offensive, and the 100 Days Offensive.
The Battle of the Somme, fought in 1916, is infamous for its scale of carnage. It was intended as a Franco-British offensive to break through German defenses. However, it turned into one of the bloodiest battles in history, with over 1 million men wounded or killed.
Verdun, also in 1916, was a German offensive against French positions. It became a symbol of national endurance for France and a devastating slog for both sides.
The Battle of Cambrai in 1917 showcased the first significant use of tanks in warfare.
The Spring Offensive and the 100 Days Offensive in 1918 were the last major German attempts to break the Allies. These offensives marked the culmination of the evolution of warfare tactics during the war.
These battles defined future military strategies and had profound impacts on the nations involved.